from? Is there such a thing as an ethical egg? I would love to hear from you. Give us a call on this number.
BBC Radio Sussex.
Call 0800 232 1045.
0800 232 1045. BBC Radio Sussex.
Now, when you buy eggs, do you make a point of getting free-range ones because you care about the chicken's welfare? A controversial billboard has gone up in Hove which challenges the idea that there's any such thing as an ethical egg. The poster on the Old Shoreham Road displays graphic photographs taken by the Animal Justice Project as part of their 2-week vegan campaign. Let's find out more from one of the group's campaigners, Sean Mars. Thank you for joining us on the programme. Very good to have you on with us this morning. First of all, a lot of people listening will have had an egg for breakfast this morning. Just if they chose to buy ethically sourced eggs, ones which were free range, is there a problem with that?
Hello, good morning. So, there is a big problem with that because ethical eggs don't really exist. It's a marketing term used by various companies, RSPCA, Happy Egg. They put their labels on eggs to make consumers feel better, to make them feel like they are buying an ethical product when that's not the case at all. Like our investigations prove completely otherwise.
What about people then that keep their own chickens in their back garden and look on them as part of the family and get their eggs that way? Is that ethical?
Well, no, because these birds are still being exploited. It's still an egg that their bodies have produced. Like typically chickens would naturally, that they eat their own unfertilized eggs. They reabsorb the nutrients from it. So no, it's not ethical because they're not ours to take. It's like a moral wrong.
Isn't there an argument that without them being fed and used on farms and producing eggs, then they simply wouldn't exist?
Well, so we hear this argument a lot as vegans, and they're literally bred to produce eggs, and they have a horrible existence. So while the industry paints an idyllic image of egg production where happy birds roam free in lush green fields, the reality of the situation is far darker than people expect. So our billboards are part of our much wider campaign that seeks to expose the truth that are hidden from the consumer. So this existence they have is not a pleasant one. So we want the public to know that there is no such thing as an ethical egg, no matter what the industry tries to tell us.
The images that you've put up are fairly graphic and upsetting to see. But is it unfair to tar everyone, all farmers, with the same brush? There are a lot that are very, very passionate about their animals' welfare, and we'll be speaking to one in just a moment whose hens do roam free.
So as an organisation, we don't like the term welfare, because why are we trying to fix this system, and why are we trying to improve it when we should just end it? We don't need to use animals in such a way. And welfare is used as a marketing term to make consumers feel better. And our investigations into numerous RSPCA assured farms, so they demonstrate this many points over. It's an industry-wide problem. It's not a few isolated cases.
Well, would you like to see an end then to farming altogether? To any, you're obviously part of the vegan movement, so I'm assuming that you would like to see an end to any animals being farmed across Sussex and Surrey.
So yes, absolutely. We'd like to see a complete end to the use of animal farming. Of course, we're not against the farming of vegetables and stuff like that, but animal farming is. Yeah, it needs to go. It's a. And what would happen?
What would happen to that farmland then? Those farms that farm those animals. And we're sort of used to seeing. I love, for instance, driving over Ditchling Beacon and looking at the sheep. That would go. There'd be an end of that. Our landscape would change dramatically.
So there are initiatives in place to sort of push farmers towards vegetable farming and to sort of move away from that. And you say that the landscapes would change. They wouldn't as dramatically as you think, because although animal farming does use up a large part of land to produce vegetables for us to eat, would use a lot less land for that. So the landscapes would be more natural, more wild, rather than being kind of like farm fields.
Isn't it unrealistic to expect the way that people consume their food to change so dramatically? The majority of population are still meat eaters. They eat eggs, they drink milk. is it unrealistic to expect that whole swathe of the population to change so dramatically?
I don't think it is, because I think the vast majority of the population aren't aware of the reality of it. So we recently did a YouGov survey, and it showed that consumers actually know very little about the egg industry itself. So the majority of those we surveyed, 82% of them didn't know that hens were killed at 18 months old. And 57% of respondents said that the killing of day-old chicks was completely unacceptable. But these people aren't aware that this happens, because there's so much marketing done around it to push consumers away from what's actually happening. So we want them to see these graphic images that are on the billboards, see our messages and sort of connect it and see the reality of what it is. So I think over time, I don't think it's unrealistic.
What about back to that original point, though? Isn't 18 months of life better than no life at all, which would be the alternative if these chickens weren't used for farming?
I think we all need to put ourselves in another shoes in this. Like, would you want 18 months of a horrible, awful existence? Like, the conditions in these places are so grim. They're awful. Like, is that an existence you would want for somebody?
Wouldn't it be more realistic to try and focus on the fact on trying to improve conditions rather than to eradicate this kind of farming altogether? I mean, shouldn't there be more emphasis on ensuring that those farms that do farm ethically, and it costs a lot more money to do that they are supported? For instance, going to the supermarket and making sure that we think about where our meat, where our eggs have come from.
But they're never going to have the real images on their products. Like, to compare this to cigarettes, for example, when they started putting the graphic imagery on the products a number of years ago with like the lungs and showing you what cigarettes cause, the meat industry would have to do the equivalent of that with these graphic images of their birds for it to be a real representation of what it actually is.
Well, thank you for joining us on the programme. It's very good to hear from you, Sean, and I'd like to hear from you. Do you agree? Is there any such thing as ethical farming, or is it all wrong? Already I can see we're getting a lot of reaction on this, so do give us a call on our phone-in number.